There comes a time in every INFJ's life when the very core of their identity begins to shake, not in loud, chaotic tremors, but in quiet, aching pulses that whisper, "Who am I now?" Midlife, for the INFJ, isn't just a turning of the clock or the gaining of gray hairs. It's a soulful unraveling, a slow, tender confrontation with the self. And often it hurts. Midlife crisis doesn't hit INFJs with loud, existential declarations. No, it creeps in through subtle discontent, a dull emptiness in places that once held purpose, a craving for depth that the current world seems too shallow to offer. It's in the way the mirror starts reflecting more than just a face. It reflects a soul asking, "Have I lived meaningfully? Have I become who I was meant to be?" For most of their lives, INFJs are the ones holding others together, the quiet healers, the invisible architects of emotional safety, the ones who see through facades and love the person beneath. But in midlife, when the tides turn inward, they are often faced with something far more difficult than holding someone else's hand, holding their own. They begin to question the path they chose. Was it ever truly theirs, or a compromise shaped by duty and other people's expectations? The job, the relationships, the routine, they may still function, but they don't always feel. That's the INFJ curse and blessing. To feel life so deeply that anything less than soulful becomes unbearable. Some days bring a strange grief, not just for lost time, but for all the versions of themselves they never got to be. The artist they buried for a stable paycheck. The wanderer they silenced to stay close to family. The dreamer they hushed because practicality screamed louder. There's mourning in the margins. Mourning that most people wouldn't notice. But for an INFJ, it's visceral. And yet, there's also a strange, fierce beauty in this internal chaos. Because for all the pain, this is where rebirth begins. If you're an INFJ who needs clarity, alignment, and a deeper connection with your true self, ensure to check out our INFJ playbook. Inside, you'll find guided journal prompts, a checklist, a workbook, and everything you need to reconnect with your true self. Click the link in the description of this video and get it now. Midlife isn't an end for the INFJ. It's an initiation, a return. It's the deep dive back into the self they were too busy, too needed, too loyal to explore. Now, the silence that used to feel like loneliness starts to feel like home. The solitude that once ached now becomes a sanctuary. And in that sacred quiet, they start to really listen to the voice they buried under responsibility, perfectionism, and fear. That voice may say, paint again, leave the job, write the story, travel, forgive yourself, start over, love deeper, let go. And slowly, courage seeps in, not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that whispers, you can build a new life from here, one that fits your soul, not just your resume. There will be resistance. INFJs are loyal to a fault, and walking away from familiar roles, even suffocating ones, feels like betrayal. But eventually, they realize that betraying themselves is the deepest wound of all. And when they begin to realign, not with what they should be, but with who they are, something incredible happens. The world begins to shift. Not drastically, but meaning starts to bloom again. Their laughter sounds more like music than a mask. Their days carry traces of passion again. Navigating a midlife crisis as an INFJ is not about fixing what's broken. It's about remembering what was buried, honoring what was lost, and rebuilding with grace. It's about finally choosing themselves without guilt. And in that choosing, they don't become someone else, they become whole. There's something sacred about this quiet crisis, sacred and terrifying. Because an INFJ at midlife doesn't just wake up one morning feeling off. No, it builds. It builds through the years of being everything for everyone. Through the smiling nods at jobs that never truly fit. Through the pretending that fine was enough when their soul was silently screaming for more. Then, one day, maybe after a small disappointment or a quiet moment alone happens, the mask cracks. The INFJ feels it first in the heart. An ache, not sharp, but persistent, like homesickness, but for a home they've never been to. It's not depression. It's deeper than that. It's disconnection from purpose, from truth, from self. And so begins the unraveling. The INFJ starts to look around and sees life differently. The conversations feel hollow. The achievements, the titles, the routines that once seemed like proof of success now feel like evidence of compromise. Even friendships can start to feel transactional, surface level. Not because those people changed, but because the INFJ did. They start to crave depth like air, authenticity like water. And yet, this craving comes with fear, because depth often requires loss. It requires shedding the old self, the one that pleased, performed, adapted, and stepping into unknown territory where they don't yet know the rules. Who will they be if they no longer play small to make others comfortable? Who will stay when they stop saying yes to everything? Midlife for an INFJ is less about chasing youth and more about reclaiming truth. It's about giving themselves the permission they've always given others, to change, to rest, to dream, to want more. They may cry more in this season, not just from sadness, but from release. Because some griefs are too quiet to name. The years they were misunderstood, the dreams that were shelved, the loneliness of always being the deep one in a shallow room. But every tear waters the roots of something truer, something freer. The world may not understand their transformation. INFJs rarely make loud announcements, but those close to them will notice the shift, a gentler presence, a quieter confidence, a peace that didn't come from achieving, but from remembering. If you are an INFJ standing at this threshold, unsure of what comes next, let this be your knowing. You are not broken. You are awakening. You're not running out of time. You're returning to who you were before the world told you who to be. Let yourself grieve. Let yourself rest. Let yourself rediscover joy in small, sacred things. The mug of tea, the open journal, the late-night thought that feels like a compass. Trust it. You don't have to rush. You don't have to prove. You just have to listen to the quiet voice inside that's been waiting patiently all these years. It knows the way home. INFJs are known for being wise beyond their years. Old souls, deep thinkers, empathic feelers. But midlife teaches them something even deeper, that they are allowed to outgrow their own wisdom, that the advice they gave others so freely, it applies to them now, that sometimes healing doesn't come from understanding everything. It comes from feeling everything, fully and honestly, without shame. So many feelings: regret, guilt, wonder, hope, longing. INFJs carry all of it, not on their sleeve, but in their chest. They remember things most people forget. Not just events, but meanings. The way someone said goodbye. The silence after a dream died. The smile they wore when they first fell in love with something or someone. Midlife brings all of it back. But here's the quiet miracle. With all that pain also comes clarity. A kind of vision that isn't about the future, but about the truth. The INFJ begins to see who they were before the world edited them. Before they toned themselves down to fit in. Before they became the caretaker, the achiever, the quiet supporter always in the background. They begin to ask with honesty, what if I mattered too? You matter when you rest. You matter when you dream. You matter even when you're unsure. Even when you stop being useful to everyone else. You matter when you choose peace over performance. You matter even when the world doesn't understand your softness, especially then. And so, the journey of navigating a midlife crisis as an INFJ becomes less about fixing and more about remembering. Remembering that you're allowed to want more. Not more things, but more meaning, more presence, more beauty, more soul in your days. You begin to say no, not out of rebellion, but out of reverence for your own energy. You stop pouring into what doesn't fill you back. You stop shrinking. You find spaces that feed your spirit. People who speak your language. Work that doesn't hollow you out. Passions that reawaken the fire in your bones. It's not about being dramatic. It's about being honest, raw, real, open to rediscovering joy that isn't manufactured. There's something heartbreaking about an INFJ facing midlife. Because this is the moment when all the years of being strong, of being the one who holds others, of being the safe place catch up to them. And they realize they've carried so much for so long that they don't even remember what it's like to walk without the weight. The INFJ's midlife crisis is rarely about rebellion. It's about reconnection. Reconnection to self, to purpose, to the sacred spark they once held in their chest as a child, the dreamer, the seeker, the storyteller. the healer. The one who used to lie in bed, imagining other worlds, other lives, better ways to live. That self never died. She just got buried under decades of duty. And now, she's knocking. In midlife, many INFJs redefine success, not by applause or achievement, but by alignment. They learn that it's okay to disappoint others if it means telling the truth, that they are allowed to walk away from what drains them, that not everyone needs to understand their journey, and that's okay. And the beautiful irony, when they start honoring themselves, the right people begin to show up. People who really see them and love what they see. Opportunities begin to align. Creativity returns like a flood. Midlife for an INFJ is not a breakdown. It's a remembering. It's not about losing youth. It's about reclaiming truth. You see, INFJs don't just face a midlife crisis. They feel it. They absorb it. They live it through the lens of memory, intuition, and inner truth. While others may brush it off or escape through distractions, the INFJ walks straight into the eye of it. Not because they want to, but because deep down, they know that something sacred is on the other side. In midlife, INFJs begin to question things that were once non-negotiable. You stop forcing conversations that never reach depth. You no longer apologize for your sensitivity, your intuition, your longing for realness. You start making space. Not just physical space, but emotional space, spiritual space. You begin to clear the clutter, both around you and inside you, because something sacred is trying to rise. The INFJ midlife transformation isn't about becoming someone new. It's about shedding everything that isn't you. Every mask you wore to fit in, every obligation that drained you, every self-betrayal you swallowed in the name of harmony. You let it fall away. And here's what no one tells you. This process is lonely. Not because you are unloved, but because not everyone can walk this deep with you. The INFJ road of renewal is often quiet, solitary, and misunderstood. You might find yourself withdrawing not out of bitterness, but because the surface level just doesn't feed you anymore. You need silence, stillness, soul-stirring conversations, journals filled with truths you're only now allowing yourself to write. And slowly, amidst the unraveling, something blooms. You begin to create again, not for approval, but for joy. You begin to notice the smallest details, the smell of rain, the way light dances through the curtains, the song that hits exactly where it hurts, and you feel present. Really, truly here. Not in your mind, not in someone else's expectations, but in your body, your breath, your becoming. You start to forgive yourself for not knowing sooner, for abandoning your own dreams, for staying too long, for needing rest. And that forgiveness becomes the soil in which new dreams can finally take root. What rises from this INFJ midlife passage is not a phoenix, bold and blazing. It's a soul that walks through the world with eyes open, heart open, and hands no longer clenched in self-protection, but open in invitation to only what is true. And in this truth, you will find everything you thought you had lost. You will find yourself. And that, my friend, is where your second life begins. If you're an INFJ who needs clarity, alignment, and a deeper connection with your true self, ensure to check out our INFJ playbook. Inside, you'll find guided journal prompts, a checklist, a workbook, and everything you need to reconnect with your true self. Click the link in the description of this video and get it now.